Well, Jim, let's get away from some sad news. Let's get to some, let's get to some sadder news. Let's get a review out of the way. Did you watch AEW Dynamite this past week?
Oh, boy, I sure did.
The final Dynamite of 2022.
Yes, New Year's Smash, was it? Or New Year's Crash, whatever. There were a couple. We're not going to go into minute detail because it's been a while, but I wanted to recognize a couple of things, either for positive or negative. Bryan Danielson again showed why he's one of the most valuable wrestlers in the world for any company. He got 20 minutes out of the other page, and it was good. And I know you say, "Oh, give Ethan Page a chance." Well, I got to be honest with you. I'm not going to give him a fucking chance because we saw where his mental state is about wrestling when he did the thing in Impact with the green screen. And he's one of the cosplay, childish, silly, fun fucking people in wrestling. So I don't particularly give a fuck. But fortunately, I don't have to turn a blind eye to a future Braun Breaker or Austin Theory because, you know, besides the fact that he showed me what he thinks about the business mentally, there's nothing there to overcome that. He's got okay size. He's got an physique. He does promos where he tries too hard. He's got one gear. His work is and it's nothing to make me think, oh, God, if only he could channel that power for good. But in this case, he had the best match I've ever seen him have with Danielson because that's what Danielson does. He takes these kids. He not only doesn't let them do anything stupid or nonsensical, and he still does the dives, but they fit where they come and they don't just look so stupid. And more importantly, he controls the pace and he knows when to bring it up and down and when to tell these guys, you know, come on or cut me off or do this or whatever. And that's why that people get better when they work with guys who know how to do that. And Danielson just also happens to be one of the darlings of the typical AEW fun and silly crowd. He's managed to bridge that gap. And he can be, in some cases, kind of fun and silly, but it fits him in most cases. I know they'll do something to prove me wrong. But in the ring, he does a modern style, but he does it with legitimate psychology and perks everything up. So I like this match. I would have liked it if he'd had it with anybody else. And I got to mention, MJF being in the skybox, by the way, with the quote, only hot chick in Colorado, that was a nice touch, but we just heard him at the start and then he was never, did I miss something later in the show or later in the match? That was it. He was just up there watching that match and then he powdered.
I was hoping he would be doing running commentary throughout the show. That would have made it a lot more watchable, although it was a good episode.
But, man,
I like the match. I like the match. I think Ethan Page is really good, and he has not done anything at the Impact level since he has left Impact. And look, desperate people do desperate things. If you're in Impact, you're not there because you want to be there. You're there because you're stuck there, and you have to find a way out. And, you know, I wish he hadn't done that green screen stuff, but I have not seen him do anything like that since. I didn't even see that. I only heard about that because it happened in Impact.
Somebody tweeted me 60 seconds of it. It was enough.
I have not seen anything else remotely like that ever since. The stuff I have seen, I've really liked.
No, they said it wasn't him trying to get out. They said it was his idea. He complained afterwards they edited it poorly. It would have been so much better, him wrestling himself, if it had been edited right.
Well, I don't want to discuss how a filmmaker's plot was destroyed by editing. You know, who knows what really happened there.
Well, maybe one of these days we'll see the director's cut.
Really good match. What do you think of the way Stokely's being used?
Okay, I was going to mention, first of all, Stokely needs a look, a consistent, important look. He was out there wearing the baseball cap, and I know they worked a spot where he got up on the apron and Danielson knocked his baseball cap off. And he may have had some really stylish slacks on, I'm not sure, but he was wearing a fucking blue patterned collared shirt and a baseball cap. And when he was standing on the other side of the rings, you only see him from the waist up. It looked like a fucking, an attendant from Biloxi, Mississippi in 1984 had wandered to the ring. I'm not saying he needs to dress in a suit and tie. I'm not saying he needs to wear the same thing every time. I'm not saying he needs to look stylish, because Lord knows I didn't do that either in a stylish fashion or wear the same thing every time. But he needs a concept. Who are you? And when you dress that way or in that variety of ways, I still know you're important. I still know you look like somebody, and it's different or it's eye-catching or consistent. I know who you are. You see what I'm saying? And, they're doing manager spots with him. I don't know how long he's been managing or whether he's ever been around, any other managers or whatever the fuck. But there's no heat on it. He doesn't lead an established stable. There's no real heat on him because he does a great promo, but he hadn't really done anything heinous to anybody or anything that anybody really cared about. Remember, I've said if you have an unknown manager you bring into a company, you put him with a main event talent and it elevates him. If you have an unknown talent you want to be a main event guy, you put him with a main event manager. But Stokely kind of showed up along at the same time as well. Here's this group of individuals that have been bopping about here to little, if any, effect for a while, and now they're all together, and Stokely may be telling them what to do, but it's not really clear because he's out with this guy and that guy, and all of them are basically not really that fucking important.
And remember, when he first showed up, after not really being used well in NXT, but still kind of standing out for the limited times we got to see him, he was with Jade. He was the replacement manager for Mark Sterling.
Yeah.
With Jade. And then all of a sudden he just wasn't with Jade. And every week with Jade, I think if he didn't wear a suit, in my head he did. And then since then he's been dressing like he's on vacation with Big Bill and the boys.
Oh, Big Bill. So, but anyway, this match, Page and Danielson. They had a great match, and finally, I guess I can say even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Page had a good match also. He found his nut there. But by the same token, the finish was Danielson slipped the power slam that he'd been hit with a couple of times, hit the stomps, and got a crossface, and Page was already out. He'd already stomped him out. So he kind of, he didn't tap or anything. Again, all the finishes just these days come out of nowhere and just kind of, there you go. There's no 1, 2, 3, yay! It's all, the guy's unconscious. Okay.
Well, that's like a Danielson kind of finish, but I really like this match. Let me ask you one question about it, because even though Page was in it, you seem to at least have enjoyed it a little bit. Did you have any issue with the length of the match? I didn't, because I really liked it, but I have to acknowledge it went a while.
It was 20 minutes. It didn't drag because it kept moving, and you didn't see the same shit over and over, but you didn't see 100 things every 30 seconds to make you numb to everything. The match evolved, and Danielson obviously was calling the whole fucking thing. He kept it interesting. The break spot, because they went through a break, that's when they used Stokely, where he came up and Danielson knocked his hat off and then sidestepped as Page was charging, and Page almost hit Stokely, but then Danielson drop-kicked Page to the floor and hit a dive and tossed him back in, and Stokely distracted him so Page could stop him. So they come back on the other side with heat. But then Danielson's coming back out from... They kept it alive. It was up and down.
What did you think of Stokely getting on the apron? Because it was almost like he got in Danielson's face as opposed to the other way around.
Well, again, they're doing manager spots, but I don't know if they're explaining manager motivation or reaction because, again, like you said, he didn't pop up on the apron to either distract the referee or even necessarily to distract his man's opponent. Come here, look at me, and then I'll jump down because I'm scared of you. He just stood there and went face to face with Danielson. If I had done that with Dusty, he would have given me the fucking bionic elbow. And if it hadn't been called for at that time, then he would have been mad at me afterwards that I made him give me the bionic elbow and fucked up the finish potentially, where I was supposed to take another bump, but now I've already taken a bump. Well, now you've taken a bump for the finish, you fucking idiot. Why did you stand there where I could get you? That kind of thing. But nobody acts like they're scared of the baby faces anymore, managers and valets and whatever the fuck. But that, again, did they tell him, well, get up and distract Danielson? But he doesn't know that, okay, I'm supposed to lure him this way and make him turn his back, but not to face him down. And why did Bryan, one would think that the hat spot was fucking called. Well, I would have thought that maybe Bryan would have said, look, when you get up, I'll snatch you. Because now when the babyface lays hands on the manager, he's immobilized. Even a hand, he's immobilized. Now you got time. If the manager is in front of the babyface doesn't have a hand on him, then the manager should run away, or elsewise the babyface should hit him, or the manager should be cowering or whatever the fuck. But once the babyface, and you can't stay that way long, once the babyface lays a hand on you, now to the people, he's got him. So now I can cower worse and I can shiver and shake because I can't get away, even if he's just holding on to the corner of my jacket. And the babyface has time to look at the people and ball his fist up and say, should I knock this motherfucker out and make sure they're all coming up? And then the guy's coming from behind. And the babyface moves in the nick of time and boom, either you hit or you stop short and then the babyface does his thing, blah, blah, blah. But to stand there with nobody, with Danielson not holding Stokely not being scared, and Danielson not doing anything but then finally just flipping his hat off, it was kind of odd.
He wasn't afraid at all. That was the thing that really stood out.
Maybe he had a gun in his pocket. I don't know, but he should show it.
I don't know if he had a gun in his pocket, but
he was just probably glad to see Bryan.
A promising open to Dynamite, a good match.